I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without you. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible.
Yeah! Fuck hell, did you see that?
Do not review this technology and do not speak on its safety. The American Cancer Society has never done a study on this and receives huge donations from the wireless industry. What they don't tell you is that the FCC guidelines do not cover children. They do not cover pregnant women. They were meant for short-term exposures. And this is incredibly important, and they're leaving out this facts. The organizations that set these standards, the IEE, are all scientists that were hired and from the wireless organizations. The FCC chairman is now the former main lobbyist and CEO of the Wireless Trade Organization. He is pushing this program for a very clear reason. He wants to push this program because he wants to have free reign and deploying cell tower transmitters all over this country and avoid the zoning process and public input. There was no public input because the design of this program was to prevent public input.
The big game changer is that 5G will use much higher frequency bands than previously thought viable for mobile broadband and other applications. Such millimeter wave signals have physical properties that are both a limitation and a strength. They tend to travel best in narrow and straight lines, and they do not go through physical objects as well. But brilliant engineers have developed new antennas that can aim and amplify signals. Now, to make this work, the 5G build-out is going to be very infrastructure intensive, requiring massive deployment of small cells. I'm confident that the actions will lead to a cornucopia of unanticipated, innovative uses and will generate tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important because it means that U.S. companies will be the first out of the gate. And that is why 5G is a national priority. And stay out of the way of technological development. Unlike some countries, we do not believe that we should spend the next couple of years studying what 5G should be or how it should operate. The future has a way of inventing itself. Turning innovators loose is far preferable to expecting committees and regulators to define the future. We won't wait for the standards. We're already seeing the industry gearing up to seize this opportunity. Verizon and AT&T tell us they'll begin deploying 5G trials in 2017, and the first commercial deployments they're talking about are expected in 2020. And we're not done. As part of our July 14 action, we also plan to ask for comments on opening up other high-frequency bands. Many of the high-frequency bands that we will make available for 5G currently have some satellite users, as well as some Defense Department applications, or at least the possibility of future satellite and defense users. This means sharing will be required between satellite and terrestrial wireless, an issue that is especially relevant in the 28 gigahertz band. But if anyone tells you that they know the details of what 5G is going to become, run the other way. If something can be connected, it will be connected. Hundreds of billions of microchips connected in products from pill bottles to plant waterers. We must reject the notion that the 5G future will be the sole provenance of urban areas. The 5G revolution will touch all corners of our country. A lot more antenna siting decisions by local governments and tightened our shot clock for siting application reviews. America's local governments will play an important role in determining how we fulfill this national priority. You can be sure of only one thing. The biggest Internet of Things application has yet to be imagined. Tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important.
Joined the Royal Navy in 1960, and I specialised in microwave warfare. Radar, obviously, which uses microwave, but they don't just teach you radar, they teach you all about microwaves and other uses. So I understood about microwave warfare and how it can damage people, how it can harm people. And when I finished with the Royal Navy, I was also a diver in the Royal Navy, and microwaves are used in underwater mines as booby traps. Which actually got me interested, because I was actually taking a bomb to pieces underwater, and it was too complicated. And I brought it to the surface, and my partner that was on the surface said, "Don't be an idiot, take it back down." He said, "If somebody's beaming you with microwaves, they'll go right through you, and as you open the casing, trigger a photoelectric cell, and it'll blow all of us up." And he said, "If it doesn't go through to the bomb, it'll aim it at your head and make you make a mistake." And that's really got me interested from that point, because I thought, well, how can microwaves going into your brain make you make a mistake? And I asked a lot of questions. I have a very curious brain. And the forces, they're very good at explaining things and telling you things. So I did that, and I also did a medical course while I was in to help me understand everything. And when I left, a small part of my job was to question captured agents, spies, terrorists, because microwaves then were used as weapons, as they are today. It is a perfect stealth weapon. And when governments don't like a group of people, for instance, the ladies who protest at Greenham Common in England about the American missile base they camped, they were microwaved. We microwaved Catholics in Northern Ireland to make them sick. It goes on all over the world. And it's a weapon that you don't know you're being targeted, because the dose is very, very low, which is actually more dangerous than a high dose. It's very, very low, and it may take a year or two, but you can cause neurological damage and cancers with low-level microwaves, and you can make all your opponents sick. It's a perfect weapon for a government to use. So that was going on, and I gathered all the information about that from people who were captured from other countries to find out what technologies they had, what pulse frequencies they used. But as I said, it was only a small part of my work, but because I was highly trained in it and I was useful, it just became a part of my working structure.
Do you think these systems that they're putting up on these towers are there so you can watch Netflix and play video games on your phone while you're taking a dump? Do you not realize what is in store for people right now? Do you realize what they're doing with this stuff? Do you realize what this stuff does? These towers are weaponry. These systems are weaponized. I'm going to go over a couple things with you. I've gone over a lot of things in the past, but I'm going to keep hitting on this because it's not sinking in. Most people are in a trance. Most people are zombies. Most people are self-absorbed, myopic children. Now they're going to be putting in the microcells instead of these huge towers that are already in place, with power generating systems the size of shipping containers next to them, with cables 4 to 5 inches in diameter capable of handling hundreds of thousands of volts, what, for 5 watts of power? Are you freaking kidding me?
Modern televisions have such a fast refresh rate that we don't even notice it's basically just a constantly flashing light that could feasibly deliver subliminals all day long. Even without subliminals, it's still a perfect social engineering tool. Mind control through TVs can already be done using something like Hendrikus Luz's patent for nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors, televisions, and computer screens. While that sounds more like a mood swing device, many patents could be used in conjunction with one another, like adding the silent subliminal presentation system for silent hypnosis that only sounds like an ultrasonic tinnitus noise if you even notice it at all. This 1992 patent was used on myself and others around the same time frame, so I can at least attest to a similar device's implementation, if not this exact one. But given my own experience, I have to say it's been around a lot longer than that. This is what people generally mean when they talk about V2K, voice to skull. This device and others like the long-range acoustic device, LRAD, used by the military, are able to throw voices directly at people's heads. It's not unlike the audio spotlight or sound laser parametric speaker systems. Only the person facing it will hear it. LRADs were used by the US military to make Iraqi soldiers believe the voice of Allah was in their heads. There are numerous patents that prove direct or indirect mind control is possible with frequencies alone, aside from televisions, Wi-Fi, and V2K devices, also known as the microwave auditory effect or Fry effect. You can view a list of several of the more popular ones that the public is allowed to know about anyway at another of the links I provided for source material. From 1961's hypnotic inducer, to microwave hearing and brainwave manipulation, to ultrasonic carrier signals. With these technologies, we were already androids enthralled to the machine. This guy sums it all up pretty well.
I asked Van Bice what a weapon using this technology could do.
Induce basically what would be considered hallucinations in people, direct them to do things against their so-called better judgment.
How easy would it be to assemble a weapon from existing off-the-shelf parts?
In 3 weeks, I could put together a weapon that would take care of a whole town.
The experiment wasn't just to lock down a police state like Orwell's 1984, but to determine how the entire public could be enthralled with a combination of narcotics, psychotronics, and a form of hypnosis. Sometimes it's just used to torture people to death, and it seems to be the consensus among TIs that madness and suicide is the goal. The occultists among gang stalkers consider us all potential sacrifices, but in regard to it being a military experiment, it's been shown that the majority of TIs are very intelligent people, many well educated. If I had to guess, it's because if it's easy to control those who set the standards high, then controlling everyone else will be no problem.
I unlocked my door, and the kids just started pouring in my room. I was pulling them and then shouting at them to get in the room, and then I suddenly saw the shooter about 20 feet from me, standing at the end of the hallway, actively shooting down the hallway, just a barrage of bullets. And I'm staring at him thinking, why is the police here? This is strange, because he's in full metal garb, helmet, face mask, bulletproof armor, shooting this rifle that I've never seen before.
Everybody started running to the other exits, but that's when the other shooter started coming up.
That's when the other shooter started coming up? Interesting.
And then I thank God to this teacher who opened up her door and all of a sudden.
I assume that it's a code red drill because they told us earlier in the day that we're going to be having a code red drill. I assumed it was blanks.
In the moment I wasn't, because there was obviously definitely another shooter involved.
Well, you think he was not the only one?
No, definitely not. Because when shots were fired, I saw him after the fact. And the shots were coming from the other part of the building. So there definitely had to be 2 shooters involved, I believe.
Since Nick Cruz did admit to carrying out the shootings,
we will assume that he at least partook in them to some degree. What he said in the initial reports of the investigators who spoke with him was completely glossed over after the first day. If you look at the initial reports, sometimes you'll see other eyewitnesses come forward with information, or you'll get bits of information about what really happened that they will not carry on with in the narrative later on. So let's go into what happened at the beginning. There were several investigators right after apprehending him that came out and said that Nick told them that he heard voices in his head telling him exactly how to carry this out.
Sources tell ABC News the 19-year-old gunman told investigators he heard voices in his head directing him to conduct the attack.
The timing of the shooting was very interesting in that I had just released a different video that had an ex-military scientist talking about this very same voice-to-skull technology.
So the military can now put voices into people's heads. You can make people do things, and that's very easy. I could do it. I could do it to you in less than 3 days.
So such as assassins?
I could turn you into an assassin in less than 3 days.
So this led me to dig deeper. I first wanted to confirm, without a doubt, was this voice-to-skull technology real? And if so, how did it work? I soon learned that if the average American took the time to look at documents via the Freedom of Information Act in the Library of Congress and Patent Office, they would be horrified at what is openly admittedly being tested, tried, and written about in their very own country and on their very own fellow Americans.
Dr. Joseph Sharp and Ellen Fry experimented with microwaves seeking to transmit spoken words directly into the audio cortex. Dr. Fry, a biophysicist at GE's Advanced Electronics Center, Cornell University, and a contractor for the Office of Naval Research, discovered in 1958 that the auditory system responds to electromagnetic energy and appeared to originate from within or near the back of the head. Fry's work in this field gave rise to the so-called Fry effect, which is now more commonly referred to as microwave hearing.
In ordinary sound perception, sound that goes into the ear canal gets amplified by the small bones in the middle ear and then gets to the inner ear where the cochlea resides, and in the cochlea is converted to electrical impulse. But in the case of a microwave auditory effect, is the source is electromagnetic. So if you expose the biological tissue to a pulse of microwave energy, the tissue expands and induces a vibration. Instead of going through the middle ear, the microwave-induced vibration gets propagated to the inner ear directly.
Renowned author and speaker Nick Begich cites more than 30 patents that show mind control is possible. Begich used this infrasound device to demonstrate on me.
I can hear it when you press it to my skin, but not when you take it off.
Right. And so it's almost like it's right in the center of your head.
And you can do that even if you weren't touching my skin?
Not with this device, but if I were using a microwave carrier at a distance, we could achieve the same thing.
And something that I worked on, that I'm not proud of, but it's called the Voice of God weapon. There are 4 different technologies that can pipe voices into an individual's head. You're rewiring their thought processes and brains. They used it, I believe, in the Gulf War to tell the enemy at that time, lay down your guns, this is Allah. And it worked pretty well, because hearing voices which have no direction or sound, you have to assume that it's some spiritual entity. So it works pretty well.
And so when I aim it towards you, what you hear is made right next to your ears. So again, this idea of being able to put sound anywhere you want to is really starting to catch on. We've got the military had just deployed some of these into Iraq, where you can put fake troop movements a quarter of a mile away on a hillside. Or you can whisper in the ear of a supposed terrorist some biblical verse. I'm serious. We make a version of this which puts out 155 decibels. Pain is 120. So it allows you to go nearly a mile away and communicate with people, and there can be a public beach just off to the side and they don't even know it's turned on. We sell those to the military presently for about $70,000, and they're buying them as fast as we can make them.
Well, you have to understand what's happening. The military-industrial complex, they kind of figured out if you just go to a country and you blow the country to pieces, then you got to go in there and you have to rebuild everything you destroyed. They said there's got to be a better way to do this so that we can just go in there and we can just defeat the minds of the individuals, keep them from fighting us, and we don't have to destroy the infrastructure. We don't blow anything up anymore. We just go in there, turn these machines on, and force these people that would normally oppose us to be so sick that they just can't get up and do that. To make everybody so ill that they can't get out of bed and make a war. And so this is the future of warfare.
Wow. Okay, so the technology exists, but could it actually be being used on people like Nick Cruz to encourage these shootings?
We need to take note of how many other previous mass shooters have made similar claims about hearing voices and dig a little deeper to see, have there been other mass shooters who have complained of the same issue? The answer is a resounding yes. Now, if any of you think that these microwave weapons are just fantasy, you should see what the Army just put up not too long ago regarding these very weapons.
Their new active denial system boasts a reach far beyond any other non-lethal system, about 7 football fields to give it some perspective.
As you can see here, a demonstration of its effects. You have grown men told to be aggressive and move forward while holding large weapon-like objects, throw them down and run away like little kids. This active denial system is proof of one form of silent, invisible microwave weapon technology. It is fully operational and already in use today. It can be targeted to an individual person or blanketing an entire area.
They're bragging about it. They're bragging about it for crowd control, dispersion, but what is stopping them from using it covertly on Americans right now? Apparently nothing.
While the technology to cast voices into people's heads has been around since the 50s, the ability to cast voices into a particular person's head anywhere, anytime in the world is a newer technology. Electronic surveillance weapon specialist Roger Tulsis explains how.
What they do is they go and get your garbage in front of your house and get your DNA. And then once they've got your DNA sequence, they can then go to a supercomputer and they can biocode directed energy attacks that will only go and bioresonate with your body. So that 3 people can be standing right next to you and nobody's going to feel the harassment except you because these signals are biocoded to your body's tuning only.
Now imagine if you had these types of weapons assaulting you in your own home, preventing sleep, causing extreme pain and unwanted negative emotions. Sadly, this is not a fictitious Hollywood movie plot. This is happening to some say tens or even hundreds of thousands of Americans right now. Surprisingly, ex-President Obama established holding an annual open committee of bioethics. Here's what one doctor who spoke there had to say about the reality of the situation.
MK-Ultra radiation experiments mostly were done without informed consent. They were funded by the DoD and intelligence agencies. In the community, we are seeing an alarming rate of complaints of use of electromagnetic weapons. Microwave auditory effects, silent sound spectrum, EEG cloning, which has taken the lab out of the laboratory and into the home. Most of these, from the research that we reviewed, can be done remotely. It seems to be more weapons research than medical research. I personally corresponded with upwards of 1,500 victims, all complaining of identical complaints from every state in the nation of being exposed to electromagnetic radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control.
Thank you.
Have you ever heard of the word magnetobiology? If any of you out there are physicians or doctors or physicists or biochemists or any type of researchers, I bet you've never heard of that field of study. I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and I have a bachelor's degree in biological science. And when I went to UCI for 5 years, none of the curriculum included anything remotely close to the interactions of electromagnetic fields with living tissue. They don't want you to know about how this works because this is a secret stealth weapon. that they're touting as the neatest thing since sliced bread. It is right now making up the majority of the economy.
Tens of billions of dollars in economic activity. And that's damn important.
And if this technology was to be exposed for what it truly is, it would collapse the economy. They've got everything intertwined in this. The pension funds are infested with investments in these companies. They're rolling this out so fast, and they're passing laws at the federal and the state and the local levels to where you can't say no to this crap. And they built this whole infrastructure's legal ability to exist on research that was done in the 1980s, and it was passed in 1996 by that dirtbag Bill Clinton. Yes, Bill Clinton signed the Telecom Act. He is the one that put the death knell to humanity, okay? He's the one. They're using 30-year-old research that was rigged from the get-go, and now they're rolling out technology that they've never even publicly released the testing on. They know what this stuff does. That's why they're doing it. They know what this stuff is capable of. That's why they're rolling it out. And they used a framework from 30-year-old rigged research 22 years ago to get this thing put in. So where the companies that have access to public right-of-ways only have to pay a small amount of money because the city has to give them access. And any tower under 150 feet, no one's regulating the emissions. No one's checking the power levels. No one's babysitting these weapons, folks.
When it comes to thinking of Nick Cruz, I mean, if he actually heard these voices in his head telling him how to do it, you know, I would think, well, gosh, just because I heard something in my head, it doesn't mean I would go through with it. But you have to understand the deep levels of torture that many of these victims are having.
It's hard to know what these people hear because no one else can hear it. No one can record this. So to find out the kind of things that were said to them, I did find this man named Tivon Rivers. He's a cryptologic technician. He had high security clearance in the military before he became a victim of this harassment program. He since has been very outspoken about their methodology. Since he moved to a remote location in another country to deter their attacks, he specifically suffered with the voice to skull. Here's what he had to say about the kinds of things that they would say into his head.
It's the shock and awe of this weapons platform. When you're hit with it, you're trying to figure out what the heck is going on with me. And there you are. You're tracked 24/7.
Now that we've defined what V2K is, can you describe your experience with it?
These signals, when it hits the skull, the apparition are voices. So someone's on the other end speaking a string of sentences that only you, the target, can hear.
What kinds of things do they say?
For lack of a better word, quite frankly, demonic. And I think, by the way, these scripts vary. Mm-hmm. They vary from person to person. I believe these scripts are to destroy the person on all levels so that they have a mental breakdown. So for me, the intelligence would be the following sentences. You're a spy. You are a traitor. Someone needs to kill you and take you out. Or sometimes they'll say in the third person, someone needs to take this person out. I think a lot of people who are experiencing V2K, by the way, are threatened regularly with their lives about each day they're going to be dead.
Yeah.
Or they're going to die in their sleep.
I'm scared. My voices keep telling me that everyone's going to kill me. They keep saying how my mom's going to kill me. They keep saying how everyone is going to kill me. Everyone's going to kill me. Everyone's going to kill me. I don't feel safe. My mom is supposed to come right now, but they say when she gets here, she's gonna stab me. She's not gonna stab me. Shut up. You're not right. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should, go to the park. Get out of the house because they said I'm not safe here. I don't want to do this anymore, man. It's horrible. Please stop saying that. You're telling me to go get the knife. I should go get the knife.
Dominique!
Yeah? What?
Where are you?
I'm in my closet.
Where doing in your closet?
Guys, the more I learned about this program, the more my heart ached for those who are having to deal with it. I found a number of documents that seem to be leaked PowerPoint slides from this TI program. There are ways here listed how to discredit a target or a target's company. You see things like write a blog purporting to be one of their victims. Many of the targets are complaining about having their character assassinated so that they can no longer work. Another ex-agent admitted to putting child porn onto a target's computer. Really evil stuff, guys. And check this out. There was actually this pyramid that established the basic needs of a self-actualized person. It starts at the bottom with physiological needs, then safety needs, then belongingness and love needs, and then self-esteem needs. So it goes from basic to psychological needs. These are the very things that are destroyed with this program in order to break a person. I mean, just really, really sick. You might be saying, but with so many involved, why wouldn't someone come out and expose it? To that I'd say, the people who are deeply involved in this do not want to have the tables turned and become targeted themselves, which is exactly what happened to this whistleblower who worked in the TI system for years before his conscience caused him to speak out.
So everything that's done by this program is meant to have a psychological effect so that they are brought to a place in their life where they're isolated, they're broke, they're unemployed, they have no family, they have no friends, and nobody in the general public can track or trace anything that's being done to them because the technology is remote and it's wireless and there's usually no physical signs left on the individual that anything is being done to them. They are specifically instructed, do not slash anyone's tires. Don't vandalize their house. That is not the point of the program. The point of the program is to have maximum psychological effect and leave the minimal amount of evidence. When I decided to blow the whistle and this technology was turned against me, a massive organized stalking effort was launched against me. And due to my training, I recognize the tactics that are used.
Well, what sort of things are you getting, V2K? What kind of things are they telling you?
The main one that they repeat all the time is, be quiet or we're going to kill you. Stuff to try to turn people against each other. They're trying to turn me against former employers, people I used to work with, family members, friends, people I'm meeting online, and it's just a constant 24/7 back and forth. Don't trust this person. Do trust that person. Don't you dare try to work again or we're going to kill you. Don't you dare try to contact this person or we're going to kill you. And so you can start to see how psychologically this is going to have an effect on someone very, very quickly.
This is Aaron Alexis, armed with a sawed-off shotgun.
Now that you know the details of this program and what these targeted individuals go through, I'd like to take a little deeper look at these shooters.
And today, the first official explanation of why.
Was a mentally unstable individual.
This shotgun is the primary murder weapon.
On it, he etched a number of carvings, which I believe forced the media to have to cover his claims of being targeted.
Including "End to the Torment," "Better Off This Way."
And he also wrote my ELF weapon, ELF standing for extremely low frequencies. These are the types of frequencies that are being sadistically used against targeted individuals.
Alexis had been hearing voices and believed he was being bombarded by microwaves.
Alexis told police he believed that there were two men and a woman and that they were, quote, using a microwave machine to send vibrations through the ceiling, penetrating his body so he could not sleep, unquote. And he told police that he never felt anything like this, that he had no history of mental illness in his family. He felt the individuals would harm him.
The attack came without warning. As seen on this airport surveillance video, coming into view from the left, 26-year-old Esteban Santiago pulls out his pistol and opens fire. He killed 5 people. Now the question is why Santiago even had a gun, which had been taken away last November when he showed up at the FBI office in Alaska to claim he was hearing voices and was hospitalized for a mental examination.
The gun was taken away from him, but is given back after he was cleared.
Attorney Myron May's case was one that was particularly heartbreaking to me, as everyone who knew him personally confirmed his compassion, kindness, and sensitivity.
You sweet young man.
Not only did he send out 10 certified mail packages to major media outlets like Associated Press, detailing the TI program and his affidavit of being tortured, he also released a 3-part YouTube video series stating similar info and telling his family members and friends goodbye.
And the biggest reason why I'm doing this is that, for me, I'm already here. I'm already a targeted individual. I've already been subjected to torture. But if this program can stop, then maybe, just maybe, other people won't have to be tortured psychologically and physically and financially and emotionally. Maybe.
Although brandishing a gun and shooting it a few times, he didn't actually kill anyone in the event at his alma mater's library, FSU, before being shot himself about 30 times. But his case brought up a detail that I wonder if every TI who acts out these shootings hears as well from these voices that taunt them. He was told by his voices if he would act out this shooting as per their demands, he would effectively be removed from the torturous program. Here's the Facebook post of his on a targeted individual page asking if anyone else had been promised freedom with a killing. Prior to the shooting killing 12 in New York, Jiverly Wong sent a letter to 10 Now Local News, and the letter stated in broken English that the police had been terrorizing him for approximately 18 consecutive years as they followed him from California to New York. The methods of torture he described in the letter were casebook TI, 24-hour surveillance, character assassination, breaking and entering into his home, and deep sickness from microwave weapons and V2K that included putting constant music into his head. Gavin Long released YouTube videos where he openly discussed being a targeted individual. He killed 3 police officers he apparently thought to be involved with his harassment. Tamerlan Tsarnaev is one of the brothers suspected of the Boston bombing, had also heard voices in his head before committing the attack. In fact, he used the term majestic mind control to describe the phenomena, according to a background story published by the Boston Globe. Tamerlan also told friends that the voices were ordering him to do things. As he got older, the voice became more authoritative and its bidding more insistent. Miriam Carey drove her car through a White House barrier before she was shot to death by security in front of her baby girl. Miriam Lee openly stated several times in her case it was Obama's voice in her head making demands of her, thus her trip to the White House. Considering it now only takes a small sample of someone's voice to create a sample audio track able to say anything, this is certainly feasible with the same voice-to-skull technology. Sister of Scott Olstrom said, "My brother is not this monster. He's not cold-blooded. He hears these voices. Honestly, in my heart, I believe there's only so much a person can take." Truth be told, we will never know how many shooters have been driven to kill with this program. But knowing it exists can help us understand how to detect those who may be caught in it, and should encourage all of us to be praying against its effectiveness.
Yeah, it's scary that mass shooters would be instigated to do these sorts of things, to initiate all these other divisions in our country that they're trying to do. However, what's worse to me is that this group of targeted individuals in our country right now, this is research, okay? This is not the end goal. This research to see what it takes to make people break is being culminated. Just like a hacker gets together his hacks and organizes what works, what tools work to break the system, they're organizing what tools and methodologies work to break us.
Do you not realize what is in store for people right now? Do you realize what they're doing with this stuff? Do you realize what this stuff does? These towers are weaponry. These systems are weaponized. I'm going to go over a couple things with you. What's coming is a kill grid. Make no bones about it. These people, tell your kids we're overpopulated. These people that run things like Mr. Gates, Prince Philip, Mr. Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, all these people talk about how to reduce the population to 95% down from what it is right now.
They were built in the late 1970s, around about 1979, 1980. The project was funded and created by a man who went by the name R.C. Christian. That was his pseudonym. Though it does have these 10 guidelines on it, I think what is as important as that is the fact that they're printed in the 8 most popular modern languages. The first one here at the top is the one that is the most controversial. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. This is a real sticking point for a lot of the folks that research this monument. It reminds us of people like Thomas Malthus, who used to say that the population was just going to grow and grow and that we were all like basically a cancer on the earth. And I think, in fact, cancer on the earth is down here on the 10th.
We're in the midst of a silent war. They're not going to fire a shot, folks. The frequencies that they're deploying are weaponized frequencies. And I'm going to explain this to you. Right now, the Wi-Fi in your house is 2.4 gigahertz. That's a frequency that stuff broadcasts on. Now, you can't open up a radio station without an FCC license. You've got to have a license to broadcast, and you've got to be given access to certain frequencies to broadcast on. That's called spectrum. They allot certain spectrum to certain companies. And if you haven't figured it out, your parents and your grandparents were watching the idiot box on the spectrum that was opened up 80 years ago, and the radio stations and the TV stations are controlled by 5 companies. Now they're probably controlled by 3 or 2. They have been feeding you lies for decades and decades and decades. You can't broadcast unless the FCC gives you a license. Now what they've done is the most harmful frequencies imaginable. You know, the 2.4 gigahertz, that happens to be the frequency that the water molecules start to rotate on their axis when they're hit with the radio frequency emissions at that particular frequency. Why are they messing with the water molecules? Well, we're at 70% water, and they know what this stuff does. So what the FCC did is they opened up that frequency band, that part of the spectrum, to everybody. You don't need a license to broadcast on it. And you know what that did? That virtually ensures complete proliferation and saturation of radio frequency emissions in that part of the spectrum. In other words, they want to bathe you in the frequency that messes with the water molecules. Is that a good idea? That's not a good idea. Maybe you're not aware of this. So they got you addicted to Wi-Fi and your gadgets. They're doubling down now because they're coming out with a new frequency. Because they claim that you can't get enough of your Netflix and enough of your stupid movies or whatever you have to check, that these frequencies are getting congested. There's too much traffic. It's a bunch of frickin' hogwash, folks. Everything works just fine right now. The systems that are in place with these towers is so overkill it's not even funny. They could run 100,000 times more devices than they're using right now. They got you addicted to these devices. Now they're going to bring a new technology out. They're going to use 60 gigahertz for the new 5G and the new Wi-Fi. It's called Y-Gig. Okay? You need to understand something. This stuff is wicked. Because 60 gigahertz is the oxygen molecule absorption spectrum. I repeat that. This is the frequency that the oxygen molecules start reacting to. So they're using Wi-Fi to mess with the water. They're going to use Y-Gig and 5G to mess with the oxygen. Now this crap doesn't travel far, so they got to put them really close together. They're going to put these little transmitters all over the light poles, telephone poles, light poles, public buildings, and you've got to put it in your house because the crap's not going to work. And I keep saying crap because this is crap. It's a weapon. And they're going to get you to go to Costco and bring it home in big boxes, and you're going to put it all over your house because you're stupid. That's what these people have managed to get you to do. They have managed to get you to kill yourselves and enjoy it, and kill your children and pay for it.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
I mean, you can only imagine. We don't know what they're going to do, but I do know that this isn't the end game. This is the research. So this video is not to promote fear in the least. It is to create an awareness around the tactics of the beast so that we all are not fooled by these tactics when they come our way in the future.
The third phase is to invent continual external threats so that the frightened livestock cling to the protection of the farmers. This system of human farming is now nearing its end. The terrible tragedies of modern Western economic systems has occurred not in spite of, but because of past economic freedoms. The massive increases in Western wealth throughout the 19th century resulted from economic freedoms. And it was this very increase in wealth that fed the size and power of the state. Whenever the livestock become exponentially more productive, you get a corresponding increase in the number of farmers and their dependents. The growth of the state is always proportional to the preceding economic freedoms. Economic freedoms create wealth, and the wealth attracts more thieves and political parasites, whose greed then destroys the economic freedoms. In other words, freedom metastasizes the cancer of the state. The government that starts off the smallest will always end up the largest. This is why there can be no viable and sustainable alternative to a truly free and peaceful society. A society without political rulers, without human ownership, without the violence of taxation and statism. To be truly free is both very easy and very hard. We avoid the horror of our enslavement because it is so painful to see it directly. We dance around the endless violence of our dying system because we fear the attacks of our fellow livestock. But we can only be kept in the cages we refuse to see. Wake up. To see the farm is to leave it.